Hi everybody, this is your notes video for midpoint in a coordinate plane. Now, you've probably gone through and watched the distance formula videos already, and you may be thinking, oh my God, another formula. That distance formula one was crazy long. That's like too much. I can't handle it. Um, which I know distance formula is kind of long and crazy, right? But and so you might be thinking to yourself, like, why is Miss E giving us another formula? It's another formula that I have to memorize. This one's not too bad. The distance formula is definitely the harder of the two. This one's easier. Okay. So think back to when we did midpoint on a number line. Okay. Midpoint on a number line is you add the two endpoints and divide by two, right? That's what we would do. Endpoint one plus endpoint two divided by two. We're finding the average of the endpoints. Okay. The only difference between what we did on a number line and what we're doing in a coordinate plane is we have to do it twice, once for the x's and once for the y's. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to find where, because really, if you wanted to take this and move it down here, right? Remember from the last video, this is x2, y1. Okay, so we're trying to find the halfway point for the x's, which is like right here-ish. And then we're also trying to find the halfway point for the y's, which is like right here-ish. Okay, my drawing's not super great here, but if we put those together, combine them, it puts us right here, which is the midpoint of this segment, x1, y1, x2, y2, okay? So notice it's exactly the same as what you did on a number line. This is endpoint 1 plus endpoint 2 divided by 2, and you're just having to do it twice, once for the x's and once for the y's, okay? And another thing I want you to notice is this comma right here. When you are finding the midpoint of a line segment, you are finding a location. So your answer should be another coordinate point. So your answer will look something like this, right? It'll be a number, right? Some number that you got here, and comma, and then another number. All right, okay? So essentially what you're finding, and the way you'll see it notated, is you're finding this. Whoops, I wrote the wrong thing. Hold on. Okay, what you're finding is the coordinate point xm, which stands for x midpoint, and ym, which is y midpoint, okay? So this right here, this formula, is how you get xm. And this formula right here with the y's is how you get ym. Okay, so let's jump over to your notes on this side. So your formula is xm comma ym, okay, because that's midpoint. Okay, equals big parentheses here. Okay, so x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And then another big, whoops, I went a little too far. We went rogue. My parentheses was too large. Okay, so remember that this xm is equal to this whole formula right here, okay? And ym is equal to this whole formula right here, the one with the y's, okay? All right, so here's what I'm going to do. Let's scroll over just a little bit, and let's do these two practice problems, okay? So just like we did for the distance formula, we're going to label these points as point number 1 and point number 2. Okay, so point 1, point 2, x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, and so let's plug them into the formula. So xm, ym equals, okay, it's x1 plus x2. So you're always adding the x's here. Okay, very important for both the midpoint formula and the distance formula. Whoops, sorry, I'm gonna go like that. Very important for both of these that the x's go together and the y's go together. Like you group them together when you're plugging them into the formula. So you wouldn't want to plug, for example, 7 and 5 together in the same like part of the formula, because one of those is an x and one of those is a y. Okay, so I have x1 plus x2, which is -3 plus 7. Then you do that whole thing, cut it in half, comma, then do the same thing for the y's. So y1 is 14 plus 5 divided by 2. All right, and then this is just some simple addition and division. Okay, so -3 plus 7 is 4 divided by 2. Okay, and then 14 plus 5 is 19 divided by 2. Okay, if you can simplify, you should. Okay, so we have xm, comma, ym. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then you can leave 19 divided by 2 as a fraction like this, or you can simplify it and give me a decimal, which is 9.5. Right? Much simpler than the distance formula, right? And much quicker, really, if we're being honest with ourselves. All right, so let's do one more example right here. So again, we're still labeling, this is point number 1, and this is point number 2. So x1, y1, x2, y2. I'm going to switch my color so it's a little easier to see. So I have xm, comma, ym equals x1 is 4 plus x2 is -11. So I want you to notice that when I'm writing these, that the plus sign always stays the same, even if you have a minus sign next to it. Okay, I'll use that in a little bit, but just to be safe, I always want to remember that in the midpoint formula that you're always adding the x values and you're always adding the y values. The same way in the distance formula, where you always want to keep the minus sign here, even if you have a negative number, like minus a negative, just to make sure that you don't accidentally like forget a negative sign. Okay, so it's always minus here in the distance formula. It's always plus here with the x's and plus with the y's. Okay, and so we have 4 plus -11 over 2, and then we have y1 is 11 plus, and then you've got -5 divided by 2. Okay, so let's simplify these. So 4 plus -11 is the same as saying 4 minus 11. It's the same idea, okay? 11 plus -5 is the same as 11 minus 5. Okay, similar to how when you have two minus signs next to each other that they turn into a plus sign. When you have a plus sign and a minus sign right next to each other, the minus sign is more powerful. The minus sign takes over there. Okay, so 4 plus -11 is -7. Okay, another way you can think about this, if this isn't something you did in middle school or in your pre-algebra classes, that if you have two numbers, right, and you're adding them, right, you have +4 and -11, right? If the signs that are connected to them are different, you subtract the numbers and keep the sign of the bigger number. So here, you were technically doing 11 minus 4, which is 7, but since -11 is the bigger number, we can say bigger number, then I'm going to put a minus sign in front of my 7. Okay, so I have -7 over 2, comma, and then here, this is 11 minus 5, which is 6 divided by 2. Okay, and then again, you want to simplify if you can, like actually do the division if you can. So you can leave -7 over 2 as a fraction if you want, or you can convert it to a decimal. So that's -3.5, comma, and then 6 divided by 2 is 3. So that's my midpoint there. All right, last thing I'll point out here is that notice that we have some negative numbers for midpoint, right? You have -3.5 here. So that's the same as when we did this on number line, right? Where the answer could have a negative in it because it's a location on the number line, right? This is a location in space. It's a location on the coordinate plane. So it can be negative. The points can be negative. But for distance, it can't be negative, right? Because you have that squared and that square root, so that's going to get rid of any negatives you might have in there, because distance always has to be positive, right? So if you get a negative answer for distance, then you did something wrong. All right, so in the next video after this one, I'm going to do some examples for you on the midpoint formula. So I will see you all in the next one. Bye, everybody.